at the 15. He's on his feet. 10, 5, touchdown.
The Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.
All right, welcome to a new season, another year, the Jake Nulph Coach Show. I'm Joe Lodanosky. Of course, he, without further ado, is the head football coach, Jake Nulph. Season preview, we will be at Charlie's Pub and Eatery on our normal Monday once the season gets up and rolling, but the Thursday start and the high school start was just a lot easier to get here. Lots of exciting things, Coach. First of all, I want to thank all of our great sponsors, ErieInjury.com, Hobbs Do-It Center, Meadville Medical Center, Lincoln Foundry, some of the great sponsors that allow us to do this each and every week. Of course, Walker Brothers Chevrolet as well, and we'll be continuing to add to the great sponsorship as you continue to grow the program and we grow the radio network. But I guess the biggest thing, Coach, is you got a new rug, man. I mean, that's going to be the first thing that everybody notices. It's a lot different. It's loud. It's vibrant. It's got the plaid in the end zone. Looks great.
It looks great. It feels great. I mean, that's the biggest thing is, you know, when we had the opportunity to redo the turf, and I think Dr. Robbins and the leadership group did a great job, and the plaid end zones pop. You know, it just makes everything more bright, and it adds to the brand, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. And, you know, we've come up with a mantra, and I think Dr. Robbins is adapting it as well throughout the athletic department, but it's protect the plaid. And you can interpret that a lot of different ways, but ultimately for us on our home turf, an area which we need to get better in 2024, we got to protect the plaid.
There is some new things going on in 24 as well. A new offensive coordinator, E.J. White, who will be joining us later on in the program. And I'm still not certain how I feel. Well, I know how I feel about it, but how do you feel about it? Not only a night game, but a Thursday night game to kick things off. East Stroudsburg comes to town. We'll get a little more into that later on. But I think the biggest issue, I guess maybe issues maybe not be the right word, but in your tenure, depth has always been an issue. Yeah. At every position, depth has been the biggest issue. At least from the eye test, it looks as if you've addressed the depth issue via the transfer market, and maybe more impressively, you got a lot of high school bodies that are looking the part already. Can you talk about, was that the focus? And obviously your depth is always the primary concern, but were there specific position groups in this recruitment process in the offseason that you were targeting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing when you look at the 2023 season and, you know, the injury bug that plagued this football team a year ago is we had a lot of those young guys having to step into primetime roles, and the ability now to be healthy, you know, with Diaz healthy, with Holslander healthy, with Mervos healthy, with C.J. Waldeer healthy. We're getting a lot of these guys back. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize last season C.J. was an all-conference player, and he played the season with a torn labrum, you know, and that's a test to his mettle. But with the depth and the young guys that played for us, the Atkins, et cetera, you know, now we are healthy. The young guys that played in 2023 are in great position to battle for those. And then the recruiting part of it. So adding new faces and new positions and a lot of talented new faces and new positions. And then, you know, I think between Coach Papley, Coach Weaver, and Coach Pacheco this summer, and I'm sure Coach Papley will address this later, the ability to be active in the transfer portal this summer has really brung to fruition, and it's changed the dynamic of our defense, which we're extremely excited about. The one area I know that you want to talk about, because we've spoke off camera about it, Joe, is that tight end room and how impressive those freshmen have been, in particular Clayton Beason and Jeremiah Neely. They don't play like freshmen. They don't look like freshmen, and we're certainly excited about their growth over these last 3 weeks.
The one thing I kind of wanted to get a broad brush up approach to is that I think that the difference in this league, and it's not limited to this league. This is, you know, everybody talks about quarterback play. That's great, and that's awesome if you have a quarterback. But if you can't win up front, you stink, and that's on either side of the ball. I don't care how good
Absolutely.
your guys. I think on both sides of the line, maybe more so, at least from what I've seen so far in camp, maybe more so on the D line. There's more bodies in terms of the mixture of young and old, but to the eye test, and I can't emphasize that enough, to the eye test, you've got interior offensive and defensive linemen that look like PSAC offensive and defensive linemen. You know, you mentioned the injury bug. You know, there were times in your tenure where you're looking, you know, how can we reconnoiter the depth chart to make sure. you've got depth at the point of attack.
We really do, and we've got a lot of guys with playing experience in those key areas on the offense and defensive line. So, when you start inside, there's been a position battle at center. Cameron Zangle, and then a transfer we got from Cal PA, John Lasado, have had a tremendous battle throughout camp at the center position. Then you look at one of those new guys with Big Tommy Pavetto. He's a guy who passes the eye test. He's had a tremendous camp and certainly adds to the size. And then you look at Aaron Crooms, who played tackle last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a necessity.
Yeah,
he got bumped.
Right, he got bumped out because of the injury to Gabe Holslander. Yeah. So now we're able to move him back inside at the other guard position. And then when you get Holslander, an all-conference tackle, back, and then Dylan McWilliams, who I thought had a stellar freshman year, who's a big body kid, and that position's coming along. We also have Jadon Brown, who's been battling all camp, trying to break into that starting spot as well. And, you'd mentioned defensively, Landon Chalmers is a guy that really started to come on at the end of last season and had a tremendous spring, and he's certainly taken his game to the next level in camp. And a new face to the Fighting Scott faithful is JT Taylor, who's a transfer out of Notre Dame College, who's been a tremendous spark plug inside there as well. And when you have a Spiegel and a Malpica, Sunday, I don't want to mess Sunday's name up, Ikegawanu, if I'm saying that correctly, is a guy that came in here last year as a true freshman. We redshirted him, and he's up to almost 270 pounds and has had a great camp as well. So we have, and I can go on and on, but that position we're very excited about because, as you mentioned, not only are we physically bigger, faster, and stronger there, I really like the mentality of winning in the trenches.
We're going to stick with that defensive theme. Defense coordinator Tony Papley will join us when we come back. Dare I say an 8-man rotation up front? We will see. Tony Papley will discuss when we come back. It's the Jake Nulph Show. Back with more right after this.
At the 15, he's on his feet, 10, 5, touchdown!
Welcome to the Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.
Welcome back to the Jake Nulph Show. Tony Papley joining us, defensive coordinator, as we get you ready for the 24 campaign. And it's an odd situation because you and I have talked about this probably more than Coach Nulph and I have talked about, the lack of depth along your defensive front and the bodies and the body types and how important it's going to be to have to change them. And we talked about Chalmers and JT Taylor and Sunday, and then you look at Gentili, another body that saw a lot of snaps last year, and then Spiegel, Malpica, JT Wallach, who you're super excited about. You've got legitimately, and then you've got a couple of freshman kids that look really, really good.
No question.
And we talked about 8, but situationally speaking, this is a hard game. You played it as a player in this league. In your perfect world, how many guys along your defensive line are going to see snaps on that opening Thursday night?
That's a great question, and most likely is going to be upwards of 8, maybe 9. The up front, we made a transition. Zach Malpica started at Mike, and he transitioned down to our defensive end, and he's done a tremendous job embracing that role, and he's an extremely physical kid. So between him and Spiegel, that's 35 starts in college football. So those two guys, expecting them to do a really good job. JT's another guy on the edge rotating. And then we got some freshmen that are pretty talented too. So we'll see where they go. And then inside's what I'm most excited about to see him in live action. The JT Taylor, Chalmers, Rossi as a true freshman has shown really good things over camp. And really looking at who's going to have the hot hand, because we put some guys in there and they're doing really well for a couple series. We're going to play those guys. But up front, we need to be fresh. That's the only way we can be successful, stopping the run and being able to get after the passer, is you got to be fresh. So we're going to rotate those guys as much as we can.
You are certainly in some unfamiliar territory with the luxury depth. Now, last year might not have been fun learning all the depth at times, but you've got a lot of young corners that have seen a lot of minutes, and you've got some veteran guys. Let's talk about the back end and some of the new faces that you have brought in that are going to see time along with Toby and Dexter.
Yeah, obviously Toby Klein, as you said, the all-PSAC coming back. Leader did a really good job throughout the summer, just establishing that he is the voice now. He is the voice in the back end. But, with Dexter, another guy that played for us, what I'm excited about is a couple new faces. Adrian Cuevas coming from Murray State, played his college ball at Marion in Indianapolis. Really excited about what he brings. An older guy that is a good person, good fit for what we do. Think he's going to really help us well. And then Corey Gross is somebody who we're really excited about. He played and graduated from Buffalo, had over 150 tackles there, and now he's with us as an older veteran that, his age and him being seasoned, it really shows, and we've seen that over the first couple weeks. And then even there's a freshman out there. Nate Deans has flashed a ton throughout camp, and I know, last year having to deal with some of the younger guys in the secondary, he's done a good job. He's going to be a valuable player. Whether it's not on defense now, I think he's going to be a special teams guy in that safety room. And then you mentioned Atkins at corner. Atkins being a redshirt freshman, and then we got another transfer in from Sacred Heart, Khalil Harden, who's a redshirt freshman, kind of fits in that same class. Those two we're really excited about. And then on the other side is Kyrell Hutcherson. He's a junior now. Asan Bay is a junior now. Those guys have sat their time, played a little bit in some spots, and we're really looking forward to seeing how they step up.
The one thing that I wanted to ask you as a coach now, because you're in a different spot, you're in meetings with these guys every day. How different is the meeting? Because you've got some veteran eyes now that are looking at the same thing you've been coaching them for how many years, where it's not as much maybe as you doing the X's and O's, whereas there's a conversation between you and obviously we haven't even got to Coach Weaver yet,
right?
But there's now a lot of miles and experience in the back end. What are those meetings like now?
Well, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. We always talk, Coach Nulph and I about, as we get through year 1, year 2, year 3, and now into year 4, it's not like we're teaching something new. So the conversations are extremely dialogue-based. It's like, hey, do you remember in these situations why we did certain things? So I think the installs have been able to go faster. And then the leadership amongst each group. You mentioned Coach Weaver, our defensive back coach, does a tremendous job. Been here since April. He's providing a different type of leadership with those guys. And then Coach Pakeka with the guys up front gets them guys playing. The one thing that's just great in the meeting rooms is you get the veteran leadership now of a Toby Klein being able to help the new incoming older guys, but also these young freshmen or incoming players that were freshmen last year, redshirt freshmen now, and helping them along with the learning curve of what it's going to take.
Now, the one thing that your defense has always presented is a stat-stuffing linebacker, whether it's been Clay Cunningham, we mentioned C.J. Waldier, who had a silly season. They're all back.
Yep.
Fredo Diaz, back.
Yep. Tristan Waldier.
Who really, again, depth out of necessity.
Played a ton last year.
Up. In terms of expectation, I don't think there's a group on this team that would have a higher expectation than that group. I'm really interested to see, because so many of those guys have played different positions now, the flexibility. That group, to me, the sky's the limit.
There's no question. And, getting Clay Cunningham back, who we lost last year as well, getting CJ back fully healthy, and then obviously Fredo, that's an intriguing spot we have there. Going to be a challenging one because there's only so many reps to play. So we have been multiple in the past, and I expect to do the same. And those guys I expect to be leaders in the group. They've already shown it in the first 3 weeks, and they're big-time players. CJ and Clay are returning all PSAC players. Fredo had a heck of a freshman year, 85 tackles as a freshman. We unfortunately just lost him last year. So high expectations for those guys, and it's going to be a competitive group there. They all want to compete and get after it.
I'm certainly looking forward to your defense. And again, there's always been a guy that's really emerged and kind of had one of those eye-catching stat lines. I'd be curious to see who that will be this year. Quick timeout. The new guy, E.J. White, the new OC, will join us when we come back. It's the Jake Nulph Show. Back with more right after this.
At the 15, he's on his feet. 10, 5, touchdown!
The Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.
Welcome back to the Jake Nulph Show. It's the 2024 season preview. We got the new offense coordinator, E.J. White. Lots of questions to get to, but I think this would be we got a lot of football questions, but here's the Q&A. Who are you, man? You got the Fighting Scots faithful, your path. Obviously, I know who you are, but tell the folks kind of how you got here and what brought you to the borough.
Yep. So long path, obviously, as any football coach, and so started down at Weber International, an NAI school down in Florida. transitioned up to Monmouth College out in Illinois as the quarterbacks receivers coach, and just came from Husson University out in Maine, Bangor, Maine. So a lot of transitions from the South to the Midwest, out East, back to the Midwest area. Big thing that brought me here, and I think I've said it to everybody, is the continuity of the staff. You know, when you look at a program that you think can be successful, continuity of a staff is huge to me. Coach Nulph has played with, coached with, recruited almost everybody on this staff. And those guys sticking around and being together for the 2, 3, 4 years together, you know, says a lot about him as a head coach and then about the staff as a whole. You know, and so for me, trying to find a winning program, a team that I believe can win, that's what drew me to Edinboro.
You know, I was sort of thinking, everybody talks about, you know, when you've got a coordinator change and, you know, what the new guy and how's it going. But there's got to be a little bit of an upside to being the new guy. You know, you don't have a preconceived notion about Ike. You don't have a preconceived notion about Matt. I mean, you watch the film, but you don't know what the play call was. Did they do it right? Was it the wrong play? So I sort of got to thinking, like, maybe being the new guy isn't the worst thing in the world when you've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football.
Yeah, and for all positions, obviously quarterback as well, but it's a blank slate. You know, to me, when I came in, everybody's at equal playing level, and then, you know, now they got to go produce. And so it just kind of gives a different perspective because these guys have seen some of these players for 3-4 years. So they have an idea of what they can and can't do. But for me to be able to come in, have fresh set of eyes, be able to see some of the strengths and weaknesses in some of the guys, I think has made a big change with kind of what we've seen overall.
Now, obviously, you know, both quarterbacks for injury, you know, being a deal, you know, not only sort of carried over a little bit as well. You know, individually, even though their body types are almost identical, their skill sets are very different.
Yeah, and you add Bo Schwartz to the mix too, and you got
Bo had a great spring.
Yep.
Forgot about
you
Bo.
You got three guys that, you know, we believe and trust that could go out and win us a football game. All would do it a little differently, like you said. They all have different strengths. Matt's great with running the football. RPO game is awesome. Ike, more of a traditional pocket passer, but he can run. You know, he can go get you 15 yards. And Bo's kind of that in-between guy. All of them, great arm strength, great understanding of the offense. But again, you know, for us, it's consistency, and those guys have all shown that throughout spring ball and camp so far. So, like I said, we feel confident with all three of those guys.
You know, sometimes, you know, the numbers can be misleading. You know, is a quarterback – you know, is a quarterback missing, or is the receiver breaking the route off too soon, too late, yada, yada, yada. Tegan Brown made the best of opportunities last year, took a major stride in the home stretch. Obviously, Nico Mervos, who is just a fundamentally sound, great route runner, possession kind of guy, good hands, you know, missed him. But the guy that you can't not notice is Ricky Gladden, who was hurt all last year. You know, we sort of watched in kind of disbelief. You've got a lot of flexibility, and you've got some new guys that have, you know, some bigger bodies. You know, your decisions in, you know, personnel-wise, I don't think is limited to one group. You've got some major decisions when it comes to snaps and distribution on your hands.
Yeah, and that's a great problem to have, right? We talked about that on the defensive side, up front. You know, it's the same thing at the receiver room. So we have, you know, 6-7 guys who have made plays throughout camp and have shown that they have the ability. So, you know, worst case scenarios, our next guy's ready to rock and roll. And so we're really excited about that. But like you said, Mervos has made some big plays. Jarrett France, the transfer, he's made some big plays. Tegan Brown, Ricky Gladden. The best thing about Ricky Gladden, if you want a football player, you want the mold of Ricky Gladden. He's going to give you everything he's got. He's going to ask the right questions. He's going to be on top of everything that, you know, we need to do as an offense. And then outside on the other side, you know, we got Coburn, another transfer in the spring. Great spring for us. Great start to camp for us. A guy that we expect a lot out of, Gavin Ennis, Evan Lowe, all great players for us as well. Again, have taken the top off the defense a little bit, have shown some playmaking ability. And then I think Coach referenced earlier some of those young tight ends, you know, and we're going to utilize those guys. And they're not playing like freshmen. They're mature. They understand the offense. We're not having to hold back because of them at all.
And obviously the running back, you know, Jerry Dinkins, Ziggy Thomas is back, but there's some new guys in that room as well.
Yeah, Karan Robinson's shown a lot of flash, a lot of explosiveness, just like Jerry. You know, and the best thing about the running back room is we got some flash guys, some spark guys, and then we got some powerful guys. You know, Ziggy kind of fits into that mold. Angelo Bartolini also fits into that mold, you know, where we need 3-4 yards. those guys will go get us those 3-4 yards. We need a big spark. We got a couple guys that could do that as well. So the running back room and the depth that we have there has been really good for us this camp so far.
See, we're going to play a little game. We're going to find out if you're any good at this, and I don't want Coach Nulph yelling at you behind camera, but schematically, who are you?
You know, the big thing for me is I want to be as multiple as possible, you know, whether it be formations or whatever. But we got to understand the basic of the offense. So we grow as the offense grows. You know, we want to run the ball efficiently, or run the ball and then pass the ball efficiently. We got to be efficient in the pass game. You know, take what the defense gives us when the shots present themselves. We got to be able to connect, but we got to be able to run the football. We got to convert in third downs. When we hit the red zone, we got to get in the end zone. And, you know, for us, that's been our philosophy. We've had a lot of competition periods of third downs, red zones, and just constantly competing with the defense, trying to win those third downs, those red zone periods. But again, you know, we're going to be very multiple. We're going to do what it takes to win the football game, whether it be run the football 50 times, throw the football 50 times. But we're going to put our guys in the best position to be successful.
There were times last year where red zone felt like a bad word around here. I hope you get I hope that the red zone, you know, you got to score, right? You got to score. You got to score touchdowns to win the game. And certainly you've got some playmakers. You talk about those young tight ends, big bodies. Let's see Thursday night. Coach, welcome to the Bro. Thanks for hanging out with us. The aforementioned Thursday night game, East Stroudsburg, a playoff team last year. Jimmy Terwilliger and the boys will be in town. Coach Nulph, as we get ready for the season kickoff 2024. It's the Jake Nulph Show. Back with more right after this.
At the 15, he's on his feet. 10, 5, touchdown!
More with the Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.
Welcome back to the Jake Nulph Show, the 2024 kickoff show, if you would. We will be back to our normal location here in the upcoming weeks. But, Coach, obviously, before we turn the page to East Stroudsburg, I know your passion, maybe a guilty passion in life. You probably have many sleepless nights talking about special teams. You're very hands-on in that regard. And you got one of the best in the business in Reed Martin and the ability to flip a field. But I know that I've seen you do it where you – little note card to show the official pregame, what's legal and what's not legal.
Yeah.
Tell us about the specialists.
It's a veteran group we have coming back. You know, you mentioned Reed. Reed's a 3-time All-PSAC player. He's got a career average over 40 yards, and he's an athlete. You know, up until this year, he was starting at corner. You know, and now he's going to focus more on the specialist role. So not only does he do the punting and flipping the field that way, he also handles our kickoffs as well. And then, you know, we've got a younger guy who's going to be a redshirt freshman, and Braden Lambert, who saw some action in 3 games last year, going to take over the place kicking responsibilities and has a really solid camp. And then we mentioned Nico Mervos a bunch. You know, him coming off of injury as our snapper certainly gives us some flexibility in some of the things we do well schematically. So from the kicking game itself, you know, we've got all the returners. We're really excited about that unit. And then the returner option that we have in the return game between Dinkins, Khalil Harden, who Coach Papley talked about, the transfer from Sacred Heart, has some juice. Karan Robinson, certainly the kid out of Buffalo, has been able to put some things on film. Toby Klein has actually stepped into a role and has shown some things that maybe we didn't know about Toby up until year 4. Ricky Gladden. So we have some options in the return game, not just in punt return, but kick return as well. So it should be an exciting group to watch in 2024.
I got to ask because the people want to know. How does a man have such passion about something that people only complain about? Very rarely are special teams praised. It's only discussed when they don't work.
Yeah.
How did you get in, so intertwined where you just have? I mean, it's an obvious passion on the practice field. Yeah. How much you care. How did that relationship come about?
That started as when I played at Robert Morris. You know, I was a quarterback and I couldn't throw the 15-yard out on the 7-step drop to the field the way Joe Walton wanted it done, and so knowing that, I ended up moving to defense. And when I moved over to defense and played in the secondary, there was a gentleman by the name of Rob Butler. I don't know if Rob's watching, but big shout out to my guy, Rob. He played in the NFL for 5 years. So my role as a player was a special teams role. And I literally seized it, took advantage of it, was on every special team, and that's where I took my pride. And then when I got into coaching, all of my playing experience there just carried over, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's a little background there. And, you know, the one guy that we had lost in the opening game against Duquesne right away is Gage Galushka, and Gage is back. I forgot to mention him as far as a weapon, being able to run and cover kicks and do all of those things. So, yeah, we're going to be pretty dynamic, as you know. You call me the Riverboat Gambler, and rightfully so. We'll have some things schemed up, and, we're really excited about 2024 in that area.
All right, we turn the page. Not exactly the cupcake opener that you would like, East Stroudsburg.
When we ever have those,
Well,
Joe?
saying,
Duquesne, I love
you-
all we want to play up. And, yeah, we have a very good East Stroudsburg football team coming in here.
9-3, of course. Jimmy Terwilliger, I've been doing this basically half my life now. And he and I always joke, his first career start when I was doing Clarion, I had the privilege of doing that game, and of course, he went on to win the Harlan Hill, and just his
What a great
name
career coach
is
had.
synonymous with PSAC football.
I called him Mr. Pisac when we were on the phone
talking
about this.
He's been in. His dad was there forever, and his dad's still there.
yeah.
And that's been. He's from East Stroudsburg. He might as well be. He probably hands out keys to the city. Maybe we'll see if he can leave one behind. Good cheesesteaks in East Stroudsburg, by the way. But this is a group that has no holes.
No, this is a great football team. They had a tremendous season a year ago, and they didn't lose a whole lot.
Yeah.
We talk about the trenches, right? They've got 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen back from a year ago, and that's a big, physical, nasty group. They want to run the football. Their top 2 running backs are back from a year ago. They played multiple quarterbacks from a season, but all of those guys are back as well. Their top 5 pass catchers on offense are returning. This is a group that's very, very dangerous on offense, and certainly they're probably looking to add to what they did a year ago. So understanding that, and then you flip it to the defensive side of the football, that front that they had a year ago was really, really stout. I remember watching early on the IUP game and being able to hold that outfit to a 12-point game and how they were able to get after everybody. And, they've got the Booker kid and number 45 back at linebacker. They've got a veteran secondary group. Balanced-wise, they have their 2 top returners back who are extremely dynamic in the kicking game. They've lost their punter, place kicker, but I'm sure they're going to have a next guy up mentality. Coach Jimmy has done a great job in his tenure at East Stroudsburg, and it's a Thursday night on the road. You know how I like playing on the road, get away and get the distractions out of. So this is going to be a great test for the Fighting Scots on week 1, Thursday night, under the lights. We're excited about it. This is the matchup that we want to play in. We're talking about goals and aspirations as a program. Well, East Stroudsburg is the first measuring stick for our program. We have aspirations and goals to get into the playoffs, so let's see where we measure up.
I think the one thing about Jimmy that sort of, especially in particular last year, obviously, the quarterback's the head guy, you're associated with offense. And they've had, traditionally, historically, they've had video, himself included, had quarterbacks that have put up video game numbers. But you alluded to something. They won a lot of their games defensively.
Yeah.
That was not a year last year where it was, Matt Ames throwing for 700 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's not how they won. Beat IUP 13-12. They defensively, I think that was probably, you make the argument, in Super Region 1, that was probably the most undervalued group. And that's, that's the perception in history because East Stroudsburg throw it all over the lot. That's what they've done forever. But you touched on it. That defensively, now they've lost some guys up front, but that is going to be that may be the or at least for now from the 10,000-foot view, that might be the best defense that we had in the league last year. Period. They were pretty good statistically.
No, they were. Again, and that's a credit to Coach Jimmy and his staff. There, listening to Coach White talk about complementary staff beliefs, the way we play all 3 phases. I think you can say the same thing about East Stroudsburg. They're a physical outfit. They're very violent in the way that football is supposed to be played. They're a physical group, and it shows in all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams. So, this is going to be a really good matchup week 1. We're excited about the opportunity. It's a Thursday night game, Joe, so I like Thursday night. It's not a Saturday night where you sit around all day. There's going to be some welcome distractions. It'll almost be like these guys are getting back into their high school routine.
Now, folks, but fast forwarding, I'm sure they didn't want to hear what anybody else said. So you got to give the people what they want. 2 reasons you win, 2 reasons you lose.
You had mentioned that word red zone, previously with Coach White. I think that on both sides of the football, we have to be opportunistic in the red zone. When we get down there, we're going to have to punch the ball in the end zone. And then defensively, we're going to have to force turnovers and hold them to field goals. I think that will be certainly one area. And then the next thing on the opening ball game to me is going to be penalties. Right? We don't have the luxury of playing against another opponent until we get to East Stroudsburg. So opening game, a lot of jitters. Last year we've been talking about it. We had 11 penalties in that opening ball game against Duquesne. We have to see that number come down significantly in order for us to have success Thursday night.
Of course, here's your last ploy. You mentioned Thursday night, new turf. Ask people to come out because it should be a great atmosphere. But let's Thursday night, nothing else to do. Let's fill it up.
No, absolutely. Let's get out. Let's pack Sox Harrison. I know Dr. Robbins and her leadership group with Craig Butler, Emily Johnston, Chad Williams. We've had meetings about this game and some of the surprises that'll be unveiled Thursday night. So it should be a tremendous atmosphere. Fighting Scott faithful, alumni, students, community. Let's get out. Let's protect the Plaid.
Thanks to Coach Papley and Coach White for joining us. And your final word would be?
Go Burrow.
All right,
At
we'll
the
do it
15, he saw his feet 10, 5, touchdown!
again. The Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.
At the 15, he thought it could be 10, 5, touchdown!
The Jake Nulph Show.
Go Burrow.